Racist cop arrests 9-year-old black girl, unaware she is the daughter of the mayor. The local convenience store bustled with customers, the air thick with the sounds of chatter and the occasional ding of the cash register. Bright fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating the aisles filled with snacks, drinks, and household items. Lila, a bright-eyed 9-year-old black girl, entered the store hand in hand with her mother, Amy. Lila's excitement was palpable as she glanced around, her gaze landing on a colorful candy bar near the checkout. "Mom, can I get this candy bar?" Lila asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Amy, preoccupied with her shopping list, nodded absently. "Just make it quick, sweetie." With a skip in her step, Lila made her way toward the candy aisle, her innocent smile lighting up her face. Unbeknownst to her, Officer Mark stood near the entrance, his bulky frame and crossed arms a stark contrast to the cheerful atmosphere. He scanned the crowd with a critical eye, and as his gaze fell on Lila, his expression hardened. "What's a kid like her doing here?" he muttered under his breath, his bias clouding his judgment. As Lila reached for the candy bar, her joy radiating in every movement, Officer Mark stepped forward, his demeanor shifting from casual observer to enforcer. "Hey, you need to watch where you're going, kid," he barked, raising his voice as he approached her. Lila froze, taken aback by the sudden confrontation. The chatter in the store quieted as other shoppers turned to witness the unfolding scene, tension mounting in the air. Officer Mitchell spots the young girl near the corner of the convenience store, his eyes narrowing. He strides towards her, his voice sharp and condescending. "You think you can just wander around here like you own the place?" His words cut through the air, dripping with suspicion. The girl, startled, backs away slightly, her voice shaky. "I didn't do anything wrong." Mitchell's lip curls into a sneer. "That's what they all say. Empty your pockets." Across the aisle, an older man watches the exchange, concern flashing in his eyes. He steps forward, his tone calm but filled with authority. "Is there a problem here, officer?" Mitchell doesn't even glance at him. "Stay out of this. I said, empty your pockets. Now." The girl, visibly trembling, stutters. "I didn't take anything." The man doesn't back down, his voice unwavering. "You're making a mistake." Mitchell turns towards him, his expression hard. "A mistake? The only mistake here is thinking she can get away with it. Let's see what she's hiding." The man takes a deep breath, his eyes steady. "She didn't take anything." Mitchell glares at him, his posture rigid. "Who are you, her lawyer? You better mind your business." "I'm just asking you to handle this with respect," the man replies, his voice steady and controlled. Mitchell's sneer deepens, his tone filled with disdain. "Respect? A thief like her doesn't deserve respect. She needs to learn her place." The man stands his ground, though tension ripples through his body. "She hasn't done anything wrong." Mitchell's eyes flash with anger. "I know her kind, always up to something." The man's voice remains calm, but there's an edge to it now. "You can't just assume." Mitchell cuts him off, his voice rising. "I can do whatever I need to. You people always need to be reminded of that." The man's expression tightens, but he remains composed. "This is going too far. She's just a child." Mitchell's sneer turns into a twisted smile. "Child or not, she's going to learn a lesson today." The man meets his gaze, his voice soft but firm. "You're making a big mistake." Mitchell steps closer, puffing out his chest. "I don't answer to people like you. Back off." The man's eyes darken slightly, but he remains unflinching. "You'll regret this." Mitchell scoffs, turning back to the girl. "We'll see about that." Mitchell grabs the girl's arm, his grip firm as he begins to lead her towards the front of the store. "Time to go. You'll explain yourself downtown," he growls, enjoying the power he believes he holds. The girl winces but doesn't resist, her eyes searching for help. The man from earlier steps forward again, this time more assertively. "You need to stop," the man says, his voice calm but with a sharp edge now. Mitchell rolls his eyes, pulling the girl forward. "I told you before, back off. This isn't your concern." The man pulls out his phone, his tone colder now. "You're arresting the mayor's daughter, officer." Mitchell freezes for a moment, a flash of uncertainty crossing his face. He quickly shakes it off, laughing bitterly. "Nice try. You expect me to believe that?" The man doesn't blink. "Call it in. I dare you." Mitchell hesitates. He glances at the girl, his grip loosening slightly, then back to the man who stands unflinchingly, arms crossed. There's a weight in the air now, the shift beginning, though Mitchell hasn't fully grasped it yet. "You're bluffing," Mitchell spits out, though his voice has lost some of its bravado. "This brat? The mayor's daughter?" The man nods. "Why don't you make that call, officer? Or I can make it for you." Mitchell's arrogance falters. He fumbles for his radio, eyes flickering nervously between the girl and the man. "Dispatch, I need confirmation on a possible VIP." His voice stammers, betraying the confidence he had moments ago. There's a long pause over the radio. Mitchell shifts on his feet, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He shoots a glance at the girl, who now stands quietly, her eyes locked on his. The sense of superiority he felt is slowly slipping through his fingers. "Officer Mitchell," the voice crackles through the radio. "You're holding the mayor's daughter. You need to release her immediately." Mitchell's face drains of color. He lowers the radio, his hand shaking as he finally releases the girl's arm. His eyes dart nervously to the man who watches him with cold indifference. Look, there's been a misunderstanding, Mitchell stammers, backing away from the girl. I didn't know. The man steps forward, his tone icy. You didn't care to know. You assumed. Mitchell's mouth opens, but no words come out. He looks around, searching for an escape, but there is none. The shift has occurred. The power has slipped from his grasp, and now the weight of his actions begins to press down on him. I can explain, Mitchell sputters, desperation creeping into his voice. The man shakes his head. There's no explaining what you've done. Mitchell stands frozen in place, his mouth dry and palms sweaty. The gravity of the situation has begun to sink in, but it's too late. Eyes from the onlookers in the store are now fixed on him, some whispering, others glaring. His previous confidence has dissolved into a tangled mess of fear and desperation. The man, still standing calmly but with a firm authority, watches him without saying a word. The silence is suffocating, hanging heavily in the air. Mitchell looks around, trying to muster a response, but no words come. His mind races, scrambling for an escape. I didn't mean to, Mitchell begins, his voice shaky, almost pleading. The man cuts him off, his voice steely. It doesn't matter what you meant, it matters what you did. You acted without thinking. You assumed without asking. The tension in the room thickens, each word from the man digging deeper into Mitchell's growing sense of dread. He can feel his authority, his control, slipping through his fingers. The onlookers, once passive observers, now seem like witnesses to his unraveling. Look, I didn't know who she was, Mitchell stammers, his voice rising in desperation. I thought she was... It doesn't matter what you thought, the man interrupts again, his voice unyielding. You abused your position. You made a decision without any facts. Before Mitchell can respond, the door to the store swings open and two uniformed officers stride in. Their presence fills the room and the tension skyrockets. Mitchell's heart pounds in his chest as he realizes the situation has spiraled beyond his control. Officer Mitchell, one of the officers calls out, his voice steady but commanding. We've been informed of your conduct here. Mitchell's face drains of color. He tries to straighten up to regain some semblance of control, but the panic is evident in his eyes. This is all a misunderstanding, he blurts out, raising his hands in a defensive gesture. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. The officers exchange glances, unimpressed. One steps forward, locking eyes with Mitchell. It doesn't matter what you knew. Your actions were reckless. You escalated a situation that didn't need escalation. The weight of their words presses down on Mitchell, suffocating him. The crowd watches in silence, some with their phones raised, capturing the moment. Mitchell feels the walls closing in on him, his authority crumbling beneath the scrutiny. I was just doing my job, Mitchell shouts, his voice breaking. I didn't... The officer holds up a hand, silencing him. Your job isn't to harass innocent people. Your job is to protect and serve, and today you failed. Mitchell's knees feel weak. He tries to protest, but the words catch in his throat. The truth of his actions, the consequences of his arrogance, are finally catching up to him. He glances at the girl, who stands silently beside the man, her expression calm but unreadable. The second officer steps forward, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. Officer Mitchell, you're being placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, he says, his tone emotionless. There will be an internal investigation into your conduct. Mitchell's eyes widen in shock. Wait, no, you can't do this. I've been on the force for years. The officers don't waver. The handcuffs click open, and Mitchell takes a step back, panic flooding his senses. Please, I can explain. This is all just a big misunderstanding. I was just trying to do my job. But the officers move with cold efficiency, ignoring his pleas. The second officer grips Mitchell's arm and pulls it behind his back, securing the cuffs around his wrists. The metallic clink of the handcuffs feels like the final nail in the coffin. You should have thought about that before you acted, the first officer says quietly, leaning in close. Now you'll face the consequences. Mitchell's eyes dart around the room, searching for sympathy, for anyone who might understand, who might defend him, but all he finds are cold, judgmental stares. The onlookers who had once cowered at his authority now look at him with disdain, disgust. The shift in power is complete. The man who had stood silently for much of the encounter steps forward once again, his voice calm but cutting. I warned you to stop, but you didn't listen, and now, here we are. Mitchell's breath catches in his throat. He opens his mouth to speak, but no words come. He has nothing left to say. As the officers begin to lead him towards the door, a voice rings out from the back of the store. Hey, I got the whole thing on video. Mitchell winces. The humiliation washes over him in waves. The crowd murmurs in agreement, some nodding, others pulling out their phones to replay the moment. His downfall is being broadcast in real time, his every mistake captured for the world to see. The officers escort him outside, where a police cruiser waits. Mitchell stumbles as they guide him into the back seat, his head spinning. His career, his reputation, everything he'd built over the years is slipping away faster than he can comprehend. As the cruiser door closes behind him, Mitchell leans his head back against the seat, staring at the ceiling. His arrogance, his blind confidence, has led him here. The man was right. He hadn't cared to know. He had assumed, and now he was paying the price. Outside, the man watches the cruiser pull away, his expression unreadable. The crowd begins to disperse, some still murmuring about what they had witnessed. The girl, now free from Mitchell's grasp, stands quietly by the man's side. Are you okay? The man asks her gently. She nods, her expression calm. I'm fine. The man looks at her for a moment before nodding. Let's go. They turn and walk away, leaving the chaos of the store behind them. The consequences have been delivered and the balance restored. Mitchell sits at the edge of his bed, staring blankly at the empty room around him. The uniform he once wore with pride is now folded on the chair in the corner, stripped of its significance. His phone vibrates on the nightstand, but he doesn't bother to check it. The world outside has moved on, but he remains frozen in this this moment of defeat. The investigation was swift. Within days, he had been placed on indefinite suspension without pay. The department made it clear they would not tolerate his reckless actions. News outlets picked up the story, and his face had become synonymous with disgrace. Every time he stepped outside, he could feel the eyes of strangers on him, their judgment sharp and unforgiving. He runs a hand through his hair, thinking back to the moment it all went wrong. How could he have been so blind, so arrogant? He had built his career on authority, on being in control, but now that control was gone, replaced by shame and regret. A knock on the door pulls him from his thoughts. He hesitates before answering. It's his former superior standing in the doorway with a look of pity mixed with disappointment. "You've received notice from the department," the superior says flatly, holding out a letter. "It's official. You're terminated effective immediately." Mitchell takes the envelope with trembling hands, though he doesn't need to open it to know what it says. The words feel final, like a door slamming shut on everything he once believed was secure. His career, his identity, gone. The superior doesn't linger. "You brought this on yourself, Mitchell," he says, his tone devoid of sympathy. "You were warned." Mitchell remains silent as the door closes. He looks down at the letter in his hand, then tosses it onto the floor, too numb to feel anything. Meanwhile, the man and the girl walk side by side down a quiet street, the tension from earlier having dissipated. The man, calm and composed as ever, glances at the girl, whose expression is thoughtful but peaceful. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asks, his voice gentle. She nods, smiling slightly. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you for stepping in." "It was the right thing to do," he replies. Some people think they can get away with anything because of their position, but in the end, they always face the consequences. They walk in silence for a few moments, the weight of what had happened settling behind them. The world, as it should, has righted itself. "He'll have to live with what he did," the man says quietly, almost to himself. "But you get to walk away from this with your dignity." The girl smiles again, her confidence restored. "I knew he didn't have any real power over me. I just didn't think it would turn out like this." "People like him always reveal themselves," the man says. "And when they do, it's not pretty. But you stayed calm. You didn't let him take that from you." The girl nods, her steps lighter now. She looks ahead, her future untarnished by the day's events, while Mitchell's life crumbles behind them. Mitchell stares at the news report flashing on his TV. His name is plastered across the screen, his face a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. He mutes the sound, unable to bear hearing his name spoken in disgust. The fallout is worse than he could have imagined. Calls from old colleagues have stopped, messages from friends have dried up. Even his family, once supportive, have distanced themselves, embarrassed by the public spectacle. Every door he tries to open is slammed in his face. He flips through the channels, but it's no use. His story is everywhere. His downfall now a public spectacle for all to witness. The once powerful officer, reduced to nothing, with no one to blame but himself. Outside, the sun sets, casting a warm glow over the city. The man and the girl continue walking, leaving the chaos of the store and the confrontation far behind them. For them, the day ends with a sense of closure, justice served, and lessons learned. The man glances at the girl once more. "Remember, your strength comes from knowing who you are, not from what others try to make you feel." She nods, her heart lighter than it had been all day. "Thank you. I won't forget that." As they part ways, she walks away with her head held high, her dignity intact. Mitchell, on the other hand, is left to pick up the shattered pieces of a life that had crumbled under the weight of his own arrogance. Justice has been served and the balance restored.